That Wednesday started like any other. I'd wrapped up a long morning of back-to-back calls at the office and was looking forward to a quiet evening at home. Traffic was unusually light for once, and a canceled afternoon meeting meant I could clock out early. I remember thinking, maybe I'll surprise Amber with takeout or something. It had been a while since we just sat and had dinner without our phones buzzing every 10 seconds. Pulling into the driveway, everything looked normal. The lights were on, her car was in its usual spot, front porch light already glowing in the early evening haze. But the second I stepped through the front door, I felt it. You know that weird, electric moment when you walk into a room and your gut just knows something's off? The house was quiet. Not peaceful, quiet. Like someone had just hit mute on a loud conversation. The first thing that hit me was the scent. A musky, woodsy cologne. Not overpowering, but definitely noticeable. It wasn't mine. I've never worn cologne. Amber always said she liked me natural, and I never saw the point in spending $80 on a bottle of scented alcohol. This was different. It lingered, clung to the air like someone had just left. Still warm. I stepped further into the living room and that's when I saw it. 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, one of them stained with lipstick. The bottle of Cabernet, the one we were saving for our anniversary, was open, half gone. A thin ribbon of red still ran down one of the glasses, like someone had poured in a hurry. But what really made my stomach turn was the blazer. Navy blue, draped across the back of the couch like someone had taken it off mid-conversation. Not mine. Wrong brand, wrong cut, wrong size. The sleeves were longer, and I could see a small embroidered monogram on the inside. It was neatly pressed, expensive looking. The kind of thing you wear to impress someone. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, staring at the scene like I'd walked into someone else's house. I could hear movement from the hallway. The rustle of fabric, a door closing, hurried footsteps. A moment later, Amber walked out of the bedroom, tying a white robe around her waist. "Hey, babe," she said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're home early." I looked her over. Wet hair, light makeup, no shoes. Her cheeks flushed, like she'd just come out of a hot shower. The robe wasn't familiar. Not the satin one I'd gotten her for Christmas. This one was fluffier, newer, maybe a recent online buy. But why wear it now at 5 in the evening? I didn't answer right away. My eyes went back to the coffee table. She followed my gaze, and I could practically see the gears in her head turning, calculating, adjusting. She moved quickly, picking up the wine glasses like it was no big deal. "Oh, I forgot to clean up," she said, her tone overly casual. "The delivery guy came by earlier, and I asked him to help me bring in a few boxes from the porch. He was nice. I offered him some water, but he said he'd prefer wine. Weird, right?" She let out a little laugh that sounded too forced. Anyway, he didn't even stay long, just helped with the boxes and left. I kept staring at her, not saying a word. Her robe had a crease down the middle, like it had just come off a hanger. Her hair was still damp at the roots, not wet from sweat, washed, styled. Her phone, which was usually on the counter, was nowhere in sight. "Amber," I said quietly, "whose blazer is that?" She turned, saw it, and let out a dramatic sigh, like she couldn't believe I'd asked something so absurd. "Seriously? You're doing this again?" "Again," I echoed, stepping closer. "Doing what?" "Making a scene out of nothing," she snapped. "It's probably the delivery guys. Maybe he forgot it when he left. Because delivery guys often take their jackets off and get comfortable on the couch?" I asked. She crossed her arms. "It was hot. I don't know, Mark. Why are you interrogating me like I'm on trial? You act like I can't have someone in the house for 5 minutes without you blowing it out of proportion." I didn't respond right away. I was still piecing everything together, the wine, the cologne, the missing phone, the monogram blazer. But what caught me off guard wasn't just her attempt to lie. It was how quickly she turned it back on me, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I didn't know helping a delivery guy meant I needed to prepare a charcuterie board and crack open a $60 bottle of wine, I said. My voice was calm, but I could feel the tension rising in my chest. She rolled her eyes. "He didn't drink any." That was for me. You poured 2 glasses, Amber. She walked into the kitchen, dumping the glasses into the sink with a little more force than necessary. You always do this. You're so quick to jump to conclusions like I'm some kind of criminal. I followed her slowly, not pressing too hard, but not letting it go either. I didn't say that. I just asked a question. She turned to face me, jaw tight. Well, maybe if you trusted me more, we wouldn't be having this conversation. There was the deflection. Not just avoiding the truth, but putting the blame back on me. Classic move. Accuse the accuser. She wasn't just defending herself, she was going on the offense, throwing so much emotional fog into the air that it was supposed to blind me. I didn't reply. I just stood there, letting her words hang in the air like smoke. She looked at me, arms crossed, waiting for a reaction. But I wasn't giving her one. Not yet. Something deep in my gut told me this wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't a random misunderstanding. This was part of something bigger. Something calculated. And the worst part? She didn't seem scared of being caught. She seemed annoyed that I had come home early enough to interrupt her plans. Eventually, she shrugged, tossed a dish towel on the counter, and muttered, "You know what? Believe whatever you want." Then she walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing alone, staring at the sink where 2 wine glasses sat empty. After that night, I couldn't unsee it. The blazer, the wine, the cologne, those things didn't just fade into the background. They lingered. Like a splinter you can't dig out. But what really started eating at me was how everything from the past few months suddenly snapped into place like puzzle pieces I hadn't known I was holding. At first, it was just a feeling. You know that gut instinct that something's off, but you can't quite explain why? That had been brewing for a while. Amber started working late more often, late being a relative term since she'd always prided herself on clocking out at 5 o'clock on the dot. She used to joke that she'd burn the building down before she stayed a minute past closing. But lately, it was emails at 9 p.m., late-night Zoom calls, and last-minute meetings that ran over. She said the agency had a new creative director, a woman she emphasized who was pushing everyone hard. That they were on a big campaign and needed to deliver perfection. I bought it at first. I mean, I know how advertising works. It's deadlines, late nights, lots of caffeine, and not a lot of sleep. I wanted to believe she was just being ambitious. I even praised her for it. But then she stopped leaving her phone out in the open. That I noticed. We'd always had a mutual sort of comfort around our phones. She never hid hers, never jumped when a notification popped up. In fact, for years, it annoyed me that she couldn't be bothered to lock it, just left its screen up on the nightstand like there was nothing to protect. But now? The screen was always down, the ringer always off, and the passcode suddenly changed. Just being safe, she told me one morning as she sipped her coffee, eyes glued to her inbox. You know how identity theft is these days. Sure. Identity theft. That made sense. Except that she also started carrying the phone with her everywhere, bathroom, laundry room, backyard, didn't matter. She'd take it with her like it was made of gold. The kicker? One night I passed by the bathroom and heard her whispering. I paused outside the door. The sound stopped instantly. Then the flush. The sink. She walked out and jumped a little when she saw me. Didn't hear you there, she said, slipping the phone into the pocket of her robe. You were on a call? I asked. Voicemail, she replied too fast. Work stuff. Another piece slid into the puzzle. On weekends, she started getting dressed up even when we didn't have plans. Makeup, perfume, new shoes. I remember asking her once, teasingly, who were you trying to impress at the grocery store? She laughed it off, said it made her feel good to keep it cute. I didn't push, but something didn't sit right. Amber's always been beautiful, but she wasn't the type to glam up unless there was a reason. Then came the Miami trip. It was a Tuesday morning when she brought it up over eggs and toast. She said there was a last-minute business forum in Florida, some big industry event, and she needed to be there to network, learn trends, whatever. She mentioned it so casually like it was no big deal. I'll only be gone 3 days, she said. It's just panels and boring dinners. I'll be back before you even notice I'm gone. I nodded, but something inside me pulled tight. You didn't mention it before. It came up suddenly, she said, sipping her orange juice. Our department got the invite late and they're sending a few of us. It felt rehearsed. The way her voice stayed level. The way she looked directly at me but blinked just a little too often. I didn't want to sound like I was interrogating her, so I let it go. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I was turning into one of those husbands who see ghosts in every shadow. She left on a Thursday morning with a small suitcase and a garment bag, said she'd text me when she landed. I got a message around noon, landed safe. Heading to hotel now? Long day ahead. I replied, love you. Hope it's not too boring. No response. Not for hours. That evening, she finally replied with a simple, exhausted, "Crashing early. Night, babe." But when she got back from Miami, she was distant. Not tired, distant. Like her head was still somewhere else. She hugged me at the airport but didn't kiss me. We didn't talk much on the drive home. She said she was just wiped out, that the panels had gone all day and the hotel Wi-Fi *kid, so she barely got online. That might have worked if not for the suitcase. I unpacked it for her while she showered, just trying to help. Inside, I found new lingerie, tags still on. 3 sets, all tucked into the mesh pocket with a small receipt from a boutique I didn't recognize. My chest tightened. Amber doesn't travel with tags on anything. She's meticulous like that. I held the receipt in my hand and just stared at it. When she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her head, I asked, "Did you go shopping in Miami?" She blinked. "What?" "In your bag. There's some new stuff. With tags." She froze for a split second. Just a blink. But I saw it. "Oh," she said quickly. "Yeah. One of the girls wanted to go shopping during a break. I just picked up a few things. Was gonna surprise you." A pause. I guess I forgot to take the tags off. She kissed me on the cheek, walked past me into the bedroom, and that was it. Conversation over. Case closed. Except it wasn't. From that point on, I noticed it everywhere. The distance. The excuses. The way she'd flinch slightly when I asked her about her day, like I'd interrupted a deeper thought. She stopped cuddling up on the couch during movies. She stopped initiating anything, emotionally or physically. It was like she was with me, but not with me. Then there was the night I mentioned we should plan a trip, just the two of us. I suggested New York or even a weekend getaway up north. Something to reset. She hesitated. Said things were just too busy right now. "Maybe later in the year," she said, already looking at her phone. "There's a lot going on." Yeah, a lot going on that I wasn't part of. I started keeping a journal, just notes, really. A timeline. Changes in behavior. Places she said she'd be. What she wore. What she forgot to say. At first I did it because I needed to feel sane. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't just being irrational. But the more I wrote, the more undeniable it became. Amber was hiding something. I just didn't know what. Not yet. But I was going to find out. The tipping point came one Friday morning, 2 weeks after the Miami trip. Amber had just left for another supposed business conference, this time in Houston. She packed lighter than usual, carried herself with more confidence than concern. When I offered to drive her to the airport, she declined. "It's fine," she said, brushing her hair back as she grabbed her suitcase. "Company's covering a car. No need for you to go out of your way." Out of my way. That phrase echoed all day. She left around 6:30 a.m. I stood at the front window watching the car she ordered pull away, my coffee going cold in my hand. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but something in me clicked that morning. I was done pretending not to know what I already knew. By noon, I had the shared tablet we used for streaming and music charging on the kitchen counter. What Amber had forgotten, or maybe never knew, was that it still had her iCloud account connected, and with that, her location. I didn't even have to dig. One swipe and the map opened right up. The blinking blue dot labeled Amber's iPad was not in Houston. It was in Madison. I stared at the map for a long time, like maybe if I looked long enough it would refresh and show a flight delay or a signal error. But it didn't. The dot stayed firmly in the center of a small town 70 miles away, right off the freeway just outside the city limits. A place neither of us had ever mentioned in conversation. Nothing about it screamed business conference. I checked again an hour later. She was still there. And that's when I made the decision. I got in my car and drove. It took me just under an hour and a half. Madison was the kind of town you pass through on your way to somewhere else. Quiet. Older buildings, little shops, and a couple of off-brand hotels. The one I pulled up to was just off the main road, unassuming, low brick, a small parking lot with more pickup trucks than sedans. I recognized the name from the bank statement I'd seen a few weeks back, but hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now it all clicked. I didn't go in right away. I parked across the street and waited. I didn't have to wait long. Around 3:40 p.m. I spotted her through the window of the hotel cafe. She was sitting at a table near the back, half-turned, sipping what looked like wine. The lighting made it hard to see clearly, but I knew her silhouette anywhere, the way she sat, one leg crossed, hand wrapped loosely around the glass, that absent-minded twirl of her hair. And then he appeared. A man, early 40s, clean-cut, taller than me. Tan sport coat, gray slacks. He walked up from behind and leaned over to kiss her cheek. She didn't flinch. She smiled. He slid into the seat beside her, not across. His arm went around her waist like it belonged there. I didn't move. I couldn't. My entire body went cold like someone had poured ice water through my veins. I watched as she laughed, not nervously but freely, then leaned into him, hand resting lightly on his chest. The conversation looked easy. Comfortable. An asterisk mate. Too comfortable for strangers. Too an asterisk mate for business. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking only slightly now. I took the photos 3, 4, 5 sh*ts in a row. The camera captured everything, the way his hand grazed her lower back, the way she played with the stem of the glass, the expression on her face when she looked at him, relaxed, present, like she wasn't carrying a single secret in the world. I didn't go inside. I didn't confront them. I sat there in my car, staring at the screen, cycling through the images I just captured. There it was. No more theories. No more guessing games. The truth was in full color, time-stamped, geotagged, and undeniable. I waited until they left the table. I didn't follow. I already had what I came for. Back home that evening, I logged into our bank account. Amber and I had been sharing finances for years, even had notifications set up for large transactions. I scrolled until I found it. A charge for Heritage in Madison, dated the day before. The charge wasn't for the cafe. It was for a room. Room 112. Right underneath it was another charge from a local florist in Madison. Same day. Roses. Champagne. Romance package, it read. My stomach turned. I stared at the screen like maybe it would disappear if I looked long enough. But it stayed. The perfect bow on a lie she had been nurturing for weeks, maybe longer. I opened her calendar next. She had synced it months ago to our shared devices. I never thought much of it until now. Her calendar showed she was booked for a leadership seminar, Houston Convention Center. A full itinerary down to workshop titles and panel start times. It looked official. Legit. Except it was fake. All of it. I opened her laptop, which she left behind, another mistake. The history showed she had visited the Madison Inn website 5 times in the last 2 weeks. She had clicked through reviews, room options, even checked privacy policies and cancellation fees. Every part of this trip had been planned. I went back to my car to retrieve the photos. I hadn't looked at them since taking them. They were just as damning as I remembered, the soft and asterisk Macy, the absence of tension. Not just physical closeness, but emotional ease. You don't get that with someone overnight. You get that with someone you've seen before. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, not sure what to do with my hands. Everything I needed was here. The lie. The proof. The financial trail. The location data. And still, a part of me held out a tiny flame of denial, like maybe I was misinterpreting everything. But that flame died fast. There was nothing left to interpret. She wasn't just lying, she was living another life. And she had done it so smoothly, so surgically, that I hadn't even noticed until the wine glasses and the blazer on our couch gave it all away. The next morning, I acted normal. Made coffee. Said nothing. She texted mid-morning. Amber, busy day. Workshop's running over. Might not get to call tonight. Love you. I stared at the message and didn't reply. Because I didn't need more words. I already had the truth. And the truth had teeth. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I didn't text back. I didn't need to. What I had, what I finally understood, was enough. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt something close to clarity. The kind of brutal clarity that leaves no room for denial. No what-ifs, no maybes, no half-baked excuses. Just a clean, cold truth like ice water poured down my spine. Amber had cheated. Repeatedly. Methodically. Without hesitation. And now the mask was off. And so I did what she never expected me to do. I got organized. No rage. No confrontation. Just a quiet storm behind the eyes. The first thing I did was back everything up. I copied the photos from my phone and stored them in a private folder on an external drive. I included timestamps, location tags, and a detailed log of what I saw at the cafe. I screen captured her bank statement charges, hotel room, flowers, champagne, everything. I also took **TS of the tablet's location history, tracking every movement from the day she left until the moment I arrived in Madison. I saved everything in 2 locations, one online, encrypted, and one offline on a flash drive I kept in my desk drawer, hidden under old utility bills. Just in case. Because I didn't know how messy this was going to get, but I wasn't about to be caught unprepared. Next came the accounts. Amber and I shared nearly everything: joint savings, checking, even a shared credit card. Years of trust built into every automatic deposit and payment. It made sense back when we were a team. But now? It was a liability. I met with a bank advisor the following morning. I told him I needed to freeze all joint access, citing marital legal concerns, and he didn't ask many questions. He saw the fire in my eyes. He processed everything quickly and professionally. Then I opened a new account in my name only, new routing number, new card, separate from everything we'd once built together. I redirected my direct deposit from work, called the utilities, changed the payment methods. In 24 hours, I separated myself from the financial web we'd once shared like oxygen. By the time Amber returned from her conference, I had already met with 2 attorneys. I chose the second one. Her name was Melissa Kane, sharp, quick, didn't blink when I laid out what had happened. She wasn't surprised. Happens more often than you think, she said, scrolling through the photos I'd printed out. But rarely with this much documentation. You're ahead of the game. Her office drafted a temporary separation agreement. No accusations. No fights. Just a polite and professionally worded notice that the marriage was being reviewed under terms of legal consultation. She advised me not to say a word to Amber until it was filed. And I didn't. Not at first. When Amber walked through the door that Sunday night, she was wearing the same confident smile she'd left with, one I now realized wasn't for me. It belonged to someone else. A man in Madison. A man with a monogrammed blazer and a secret room at a discreet hotel. She dropped her bag at the front door like nothing had changed. Kissed me on the cheek like her mouth hadn't been on someone else's all weekend. "Miss me?" she asked, laughing softly as she kicked off her shoes. I said nothing. Just nodded and went back to the kitchen. She followed, leaned against the counter, and started talking about some fake workshop on digital branding dynamics. Her hands moved a little too much. Her smile flickered once, then stabilized. I nodded. I even poured her a glass of water. Not because I cared, but because I wanted to see what a liar looked like when they were convinced they'd gotten away with it. She went upstairs to unpack. I heard her humming as she moved around the room, completely unaware that every drawer, every account, every strand of our shared life had already started to unravel behind her. That night, I slept in the guest room. I told her I had a migraine. She didn't question it. The next day, I called her parents. This was the part one struggled with. Not because I wanted to protect her, but because I didn't want to drag them through the wreckage. They were good people. Her mom loved me like her own son. Her dad and I used to fix things around their house together, gutters, sinks, wiring. They didn't deserve what she'd done. But they needed to know. I told them the marriage was going through something serious. That I wasn't ready to talk details, but they should prepare for changes. I emphasized that I still cared about the family, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Her father was quiet. Her mother started crying. I heard it in the background and it made my chest tighten, just for a moment. But I stayed composed. I owed them honesty, not emotional chaos. I left out the affair, at least for now. Instead, I focused on dignity. For me. For them. For whatever was left of the sinking ship. That week, I moved into the spare bedroom permanently. I told Amber I needed space to work, that I was on deadline and not sleeping well. She didn't protest. If anything, she seemed relieved. Less interaction, fewer chances to get caught in her own lies. She spent most evenings scrolling on her phone or out running errands. I stayed quiet. I watched. I documented. Because I knew the storm was coming. And I wanted to be ready when it hit. 3 days later, the papers were ready. Melissa filed them quietly. The official notice was scheduled for courier delivery the following Tuesday mid-morning. She asked if I wanted to be home when it arrived. I said yes. I wanted to see her face. In the meantime, I went back through our financial records. All of them. Every statement. Every charge. Every mile driven. Every excuse she'd given me. And sure enough, the deeper I went, the worse it got. There were hotel charges in other towns. Restaurant bills for 2. Occasional Venmo transfers labeled with emojis, wine glasses, hearts, fire. Always during times she claimed to be at work events or supporting a friend. I took *TS. I printed them. I indexed them by date and stored them in a binder. Every time she lied to my face, I added a tab. And still, I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even flinch. Because I had everything. The proof. The plan. The power. And all that was left was the reveal. If I've learned anything from this whole mess, it's that the person who cheats is rarely content with just betrayal. Once they get away with one lie, they start pushing boundaries, testing how far they can go without consequence. And Amber? She didn't just want freedom. She wanted control. She wanted everything, and she didn't care what it cost me. 3 days after the papers were filed, she found out. Not because I told her, but because the money stopped moving. See, I had frozen our joint accounts quietly under legal advice. I left a small buffer in one card that she still had access to, enough for groceries, gas, basic things, but the real accounts, the ones that mattered, locked down tight. I figured she might notice eventually, but I underestimated how fast she'd act. It was a Thursday, just before noon, when the alert hit my phone. Unusual withdrawal attempt, $9,800 flagged account, joint savings. I froze. The location? A bank branch across town. Not ours. One we'd never used. The kind of place you drive to when you don't want to be recognized. She was trying to drain it. Fast. I grabbed my keys and left work without telling anyone. By the time I got there, I spotted her through the tall glass windows of the bank lobby. She was mid-argument with the branch manager, her face flushed, hands gesturing wildly. She looked angry, frantic, not at all like the composed, calculating woman who'd fooled me for months. I stepped inside quietly, keeping my distance. Her voice carried across the tiled floor. It's my account too. I have every right to access the money. The manager, middle-aged, calm, unimpressed, shook his head. Ma'am, without both parties present and proper authorization, we can't release the funds. Your name is on the account, yes, but it's been frozen by legal order. She spun around, probably to storm out, and then stopped cold when she saw me standing near the wall. Our eyes locked. Her jaw clenched. You, she hissed, marching over. What did you do? I followed my lawyer's instructions, I said, voice low and measured. You're not entitled to take almost 10 grand without discussion. Not anymore. You're trying to cut me off, she snapped. Seriously, Mark? You're going to starve your own wife. You're not my wife anymore, I said calmly. You gave that up in Madison. Her eyes widened just for a second, but she recovered quickly. You're overreacting, she said, switching tactics. I needed the money for legal stuff. For rent. For... The hotel roses and champagne didn't look very legal to me, I interrupted. The manager's face twitched. He suddenly had somewhere else to be. Amber stared at me, mouth slightly open. You went through my statements? I crossed my arms. No, Amber. I went through her statements. Big difference. That's when things really spiraled. She started shouting. Not loud at first, but sharp, bitter, escalating by the second. People in line began to turn. A security guard stepped forward. She didn't seem to care. She accused me of abuse, of financial manipulation, of humiliating her in public. You're trying to destroy me, she yelled. You're a sick control freak who can't handle being left. Left. That word hit harder than it should have. I wasn't the one who left. She did. Emotionally. Physically. In every way that mattered. I didn't respond. I just handed the manager a folder with a copy of the temporary financial hold and my attorney's letter. He skimmed it and nodded. We're good here, sir. Amber let out a scream, full, guttural, frustrated. You can't do this. You can't treat me like some criminal. That's when the bank manager said, very calmly, ma'am, if you don't lower your voice, I'll have to call security. She turned on him. Go ahead. Call them. I'd love for someone to see how I'm being abused here. And right on cue, like some ironic gift from the universe, the police arrived. 2 officers stepped inside, responding to a call from a teller who, wisely, didn't wait for things to get worse. They approached us slowly, professionally. Is there a problem here? The taller one asked. The bank manager nodded toward Amber. This customer became aggressive when we denied a withdrawal on a frozen account. Amber's head whipped toward me. Tell them the truth, Mark. Tell them how you're trying to ruin my life. The shorter officer looked at me. Sir? I pulled out my wallet, calmly handed over my ID, and said my attorney filed a temporary hold on all joint financial assets pending divorce proceedings. She attempted to remove funds without consent. All documentation is here. He looked through the folder. Read carefully. Whispered something to his partner. Amber saw their faces. Her rage began to shift into something else. Something brittle. Cornered. This is insane, she muttered, pacing. I'm his wife. I'm entitled. He's gaslighting me. You're all just... Ma'am, the officer interrupted, we're not making any arrests today. But you need to leave the premises voluntarily or we'll have to escort you. You're kidding me, she breathed. You're taking his side? No one's taking sides, he replied flatly. We're following protocol. You can contest this through the legal system. She looked at me one last time. There was no fury in her eyes now. Just disbelief. Like she couldn't process that I wasn't reacting the way she expected. No shouting. No begging. Just a cold, quiet refusal to be played anymore. You're pathetic, she said, her voice shaking. You're actually pathetic. I didn't flinch. Maybe. But I'm not the one lying to everyone. The officers walked her out without touching her. She didn't resist. She just kept muttering under her breath words I didn't bother to make out. When the door closed behind her, the silence inside the bank was deafening. The manager looked at me and said quietly, "You handled that better than most would." I nodded. "Thanks." And I left. Outside, I watched as Amber climbed into her car, hands shaking on the steering wheel. She sat there for a long time before driving away. I didn't follow. Didn't wave. Didn't even blink. I just got in my own car and drove home. When I got there, I sat in the living room for a long time. The same room where the 2 wine glasses once sat. The same room where her lies began to unravel. She had tried to turn the tables. She had failed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about protection. From her. From the damage she had caused and the chaos she continued to stir. She wasn't just a woman who made a mistake. She was someone who thought she could steal, lie, manipulate, and still come out on top. But this time, she lost. And I had everything I needed to make sure she never tried it again. The next day, I got a message that stopped me cold. It was from a woman named Rachel. The name didn't ring a bell until I opened the message. "Hi Mark. I think we need to talk. I believe my husband is the man your wife's been seeing. We met at a cafe downtown, neutral territory, public, quiet." Rachel was composed but tired, like someone who'd been living with the truth for too long. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, *TS emails and messages between Amber and a man named Chris. Her husband. And yeah, same guy from Madison. Same blazer, same face, same arm around Amber's waist. "I found this weeks ago," Rachel said quietly. I didn't know how to bring it up. Then I saw the bank statements. That's when I knew it was more than an affair. They weren't just seeing each other. They were planning something. Inside one of the messages, Amber wrote, "If we do this right, we'll both walk away clean. Just need that account set up and some paperwork shifted." They had opened a new joint bank account together. One Amber hadn't told me about. Money had already been moved, small amounts from her business and, worse, traces of funds from one of our joint ventures. Fraud, plain and simple. Rachel and I stared at each other, both realizing we weren't just victims of infidelity, we were collateral in something bigger. We handed everything to my lawyer. It was enough to not only close our divorce case in my favor, but to initiate a criminal investigation. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel alone in this nightmare. The court ruled swiftly. I got the house, the car, full custody of the kids, and even compensation for attempted financial fraud. Amber didn't just lose me, she lost everything. Her reputation was shattered. Word got around fast. So did the investigation. Chris lost his job and faced charges too. Their fantasy collapsed in record time. Strangely, Rachel and I kept talking. Not as a rebound or some forced trauma bond, but as 2 people who'd been through hell and could actually understand it. We grabbed coffee now and then, talked about next steps, about healing. No pressure. Just real, human connection. 6 months later, I stood at my son's swim meet, cheering louder than I'd ever cheered for anything. He turned, grinned at me from the water. That grin, pure, unfiltered joy, hit me like a wave. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel like a shell of a man. I felt whole. Amber's lies hadn't destroyed me. They'd freed me. And while the past would never disappear, I wasn't stuck in it anymore. I was moving forward with clarity, with strength, and maybe, just maybe, with hope.